are going to do? Do you think they're going to come here? Or do you think they're going to go to the countries where they don't have to worry about the cap and trade legislation with higher energy costs? Obviously, this cap and trade would not only be terrible for this country, and it would be one of the primary things that would ship jobs overseas. It would be absolutely devastating to Western Pennsylvania. As Mark said, we sit on huge reserves of coal and natural gas. We could and should be the leaders in getting America off of its dependency on foreign oil. And I have every intention to do everything I can to make sure that that happens.
Thank you. You may have 30 seconds if you wish. Our next question, Mr. Burns. What are your thoughts regarding the latest ruling on Don't Ask, Don't Tell with military service?
Well, I've been consistent in my opinion of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. I've talked to a number of folks in the military. I think that that policy should not be changed and should not have been changed. When I talk with folks, especially in a time of war, we do not want to be taking a risk or taking the focus off of anything that these folks in the military have to do to get their job done. We want them to be focused on the job at hand. We don't want to be playing around with being politically correct whenever we're talking about something like national security and talking about saving the lives or protecting the lives of people that are protecting our freedoms and liberties. So this is not a time, especially now in a time of war, that we should be doing anything to adjust the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy.
Well, as you may know, when the vote came up in the House of Representatives, I voted to not repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And a reason being is that right now there's been $15 million appropriated to the military because they're doing a study to see what the implications of Don't Ask, Don't Tell will have in the military. Because it's not just the policy itself, but it's the implications about different states have different laws. So if you have a base in one state and that state doesn't recognize something, then what's the implication? So my thought has always been that allow the military to finish their study, to not politicize it, and then we as members of Congress would follow their lead on what we could do. With the court ruling, though, because it's a legal issue now, so it sort of muddies the water, and it's going to be, we're going to have to navigate around this, and with the military going through its study right now, it complicates the situation, and I'm still supportive of that study. I'm anxious. They're supposed to finish, if I'm not mistaken, sometime this December with the study to come back to the Congress with a report on what they see as the move forward.
Thank you. Our next question is directed to Congressman Fritz. How does your political ideology differ from your opponents?
Well, I'm a Democrat, and the reason I'm a Democrat is that the core of my beliefs is that it's about people. People come before corporations. People come before the business. I believe it's our stance that we represent working people of the country. And one of the things that we do is that we support policies that make sure that we have safety in the workforce and that workers you can't employ children. That's what this is about. There were laws for child labor laws and that kind of stuff. So, it's about protecting employees and about protecting working men and women, which leads to also social programs like Social Security and Medicare. There's been democratic principles that the men and women of this country earn and deserve things once they retire, once they move on. The way we differ, I think, really, more importantly, though, is that my ideology does not prevent me from working with other people. What I want to do, and I've shown it time and time again, is when we sit down to solve a problem, it has nothing to do with ideology. It's about solving a problem. And it brings up a point that, there's these ads that are running by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. And it's really disheartening to me because I've worked with local Chamber of Commerce leaders my entire career. You know, you want to talk about Ron Alden down here in Somerset, you want to talk about Bob Blair in Johnstown. And, you know, we worked on problems together, and I can tell you quite honestly, I have no idea what their party is or what their ideology is, because it was about solving problems and building something for the future. So that's where I see the big difference, is that although I have very strong beliefs on certain things, I'm pro-life, I'm pro-Second Amendment, and I will defend those. When it comes down to solving problems for people, it's about people. It's about working together for a better life for everybody.
Well, that sounds like how we're alike, not how we're different. Because I'm certainly interested in working with people to solve problems as well. That's the only reason I got into this race. But let me make a point of a couple of differences that I think are obvious. And it's when it comes to the philosophy of government and government spending. I think the government spending is out of control. I think it needs to be reined in. And I think there's a tremendous amount of government waste. Mr. Kritz, on the other hand, believes that we need more government. We need more government spending. Let me give you a few examples. You know, there's a new process in Congress where voters get to identify items that will get voted on to be possibly cut as wasteful spending. And let me just bring up a few of them. There was an opportunity that Mr. Kritz had to eliminate federal employee pay raise. It would have saved $30 billion. While the rest of the corporations in America are cutting back on payroll, why not the federal government? He voted against it. How about to sell excess federal property that would have saved $15 billion? Again, identified by voters. He voted against it. How about prohibiting the signs that was bragging about the stimulus package that had been spent on infrastructure? Tens of millions of dollars. I would have voted against that. I think that's wasteful spending. He thinks we need signs for that. And here's one. How could anyone ever be against this? Requiring the collection of unpaid taxes for federal employees. Over $1 billion. How could anybody be against that? I don't know. Ask Mark Kritz. He thinks that federal employees shouldn't have to pay their uncollected taxes. There's a huge difference. I believe there's plenty of waste in government spending. He does not. He's proven it, and he votes to continue it.
Thank you.
May I reply? Well, what I can tell you is that I went to Congress to do things. What I did is I authored legislation to cut Congress's budget. The Congress means the House, the Senate, leadership, committees, and our salaries by 5%. Because if America is tightening its belt, so should Congress. And these references that Mr. Burns is making, I'd have to look them up what he's talking about, because they were probably buried in some bill or it was some sort of parliamentary trick. But what I can tell you is I went there to do one thing.
Time. Thank you. Our next question is directed to Mr. Burns. Do you believe that bailouts and stimulus programs implemented to improve the economy were a good use of taxpayers' money?
Absolutely not. You know, I've been asked before, is there any company that's too big to fail? I don't believe that any company deserves to be bailed out by the federal government. If a corporation is making a poor decision and they get themselves into a position where they're not doing well, if we give them more of our hard-earned tax dollars, what in the world would make us believe that they're all of a sudden going to make smart decisions? And then we were upset when we bailed out some of these large companies when they continued to give their office holder, their executives, bonuses. Well, why not? They were making bad decisions before. They continue to make poor decisions. The bailouts were a big mistake. The stimulus bills were a big mistake. You know, like I said before, we've literally stolen $1 trillion from our kids and grandkids. We were told that these stimulus packages were going to create jobs. They haven't. We were told that if we didn't pass the stimulus bill, that unemployment was going to go about 8%. Well, we passed 3 stimulus bills, and we now have unemployment near 10%. It's obvious they didn't work. What they did do is steal from our children, and it's a shame, and I think it's got to stop. And if I got elected, I would cancel any of the unspent stimulus.
Well, and as is highlighted, a lot of problems with the TARP And with the stimulus bill, was there a lot of waste, a lot of things that weren't accounted for. And, you know, unfortunately, one of the things that comes out of the TARP is all these gamblers on Wall Street that played with our money like it was monopoly money, were rewarded by being bailed out of what they were doing. You know, I'm not an economist, but you know, I know that this country is in dire straits, but I know that we're in a tenuous situation right now, and we have to look forward. You know, looking back is all well and good, but it's how do we solve the problems going forward? You know, I can't say that the stimulus or the TARP were successful or not successful. There was a lot of waste. They could have done a lot of things a lot better, and you know, I wouldn't support them.
Let me just make one more point. I'm not an economist either, but I do have some degree of common sense. And to me, this is why stimulus doesn't work. Because the government doesn't have a pile of money sitting around ready to use whenever it's needed. The government only gets money from you. So before they can hand out any stimulus money, they have to take it from you to begin with. That's why none of these programs actually work, because they take money from you and out of the economy, waste some of it before they put more in. That's why we shouldn't be doing stimulus bills.
Our next question is for Congressman Fritz. What changes, if any, do you believe need to be made regarding the recently passed federal health care law?
Well, I can tell you that I didn't support it from the start because it's a huge cost, and one of the things that they didn't put in the bill was the doctor fix for our seniors on Medicare. It was something that we had to address later, which costs more money. One of the things that affects local hospitals, and I don't know if there's any healthcare people in the field or in the audience, but is the average wage index, which was something we've been working on for actually since April of last year. Hospitals get their reimbursement for Medicare patients, and it's based on the average wage index. And in our area, it's actually very low, and it puts our hospitals at risk. They have a very slim bottom line because of it. So it's something that has to be addressed. I voted I voted to repeal the individual mandate because I thought that was something that needed to be addressed. In fact, there was just a court decision, I'm not sure what state, but the state's challenges of the health care bill was upheld, and the case is going to go forward. So it is a legal issue that we have to keep track of. And I've also signed on to legislation to eliminate it's called the Small Business Paper Reduction Act, because small businesses have extra paperwork that they have to do that's in this health care bill. So there's actually quite a bit that we need to fix. And again, I go back to what I have learned over years, is that we have to look forward. We have to fix the things that we can fix and eliminate the things that need eliminated.
Thank you, Mr. Burns.
I can't help but be reminded of when John Kerry said he was against it before he was for it. Because, you know, Mark Fritz says he was against the health care bill, but now that it's passed, he wouldn't repeal it. So I'm not really sure what he means. There's no fixing the health care bill. I mean, we have a bill with thousands of pages in it, and Nancy Pelosi was right when she said we have to pass it to see what's in it. Because the hospital administrators that I still meet with, they still can't tell me how that bill is going to affect them. Not all the rules have even been written yet. This bill needs to be scrapped. In America, we don't have a health care problem. Because there isn't anybody in this room that if you've got a serious illness would want to go anywhere but the United States to get treated. We're the envy of the world when it comes to health care. We do have a coverage and a cost problem. Those things we can address. And some of the ways we can address that, and why we can't do this in a nonpartisan or bipartisan way, tort reform. That polls very, very well. Everybody is for tort reform, but for some reason, we can't get tort reform passed. That should be in the new health bill. We have to introduce competition into this market. We should allow for health savings accounts as well. And by the way, there's now a question of the constitutionality of this health care bill. So there isn't anything in here that I think we should keep. We should start from scratch. We do not want what amounts to a government takeover of our healthcare system. It will simply lower quality and kill jobs.
You may have 30 seconds.
We've been talking about healthcare reform since the Nixon era. And had before was crushing small business. I did not support this health care bill, but it has been passed, and I'm proud to convey that the Hospital Association of Pennsylvania, which we both met with, is supporting my campaign because